Level 1. The experienced soldier. You cannot simply walk into Delta Force without prior training or selection. That is the first thing the world gets wrong. There is no recruitment poster. There is no website with a shiny application button. There is no inspirational commercial. Delta Force, formerly known as the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, recruits from within the Army. Candidates are typically enlisted soldiers between E4 and E8, with at least 2.5 years of service remaining. Most come from the 75th Ranger Regiment or the Special Forces groups. Some come from conventional infantry or other branches. All of them have already proven they can operate under pressure. So, before the legend begins, you are already a soldier with years of hard service behind you. You have deployed. You have led men. You have been tested in ways that civilians will never understand. And yet, none of that qualifies you for what comes next. Because Delta does not want tough soldiers. The Army is full of tough soldiers. Delta wants something rarer. Men who remain precise, calm, intelligent, and morally grounded when the pressure becomes inhuman and the recognition becomes zero. That is the quiet decision. Not whether you are hard enough, whether you are willing to become invisible. Level 2. The candidate. The selection is where the myth starts, and where most men end. Publicly, it is understood to involve an intensive multi-week assessment built around land navigation, rucksack marches over brutal terrain, and psychological evaluation. The distances increase, the weight increases, the time allowed does not. What breaks most candidates is not the physical suffering, it is the silence. There are no drill instructors screaming motivation, there is no scoreboard, there is no one telling you whether you are passing or failing. You move, you navigate, you carry, you decide whether to continue or quit, and the deciding is entirely yours. That is the design. Delta wants men who do not need external validation to sustain effort, and men who can think clearly while their bodies are being systematically dismantled by terrain, weight, and sleep deprivation. Men whose judgment survives when comfort is removed completely. Out of every selection class, publicly reported numbers suggest roughly 90% of candidates do not make it through. That is not a failure rate. That is a filtration rate. The unit is not looking for survivors. It is looking for a very specific kind of mind wrapped inside a very durable body. And if you are still standing at the end, soaked, broken, quiet, you have not earned anything yet. You have only earned the right to begin. Level 3. The OTC Student, Operator's Training Course. Passing selection does not make you an operator. It makes you eligible for the Operator's Training Course, the OTC, which is where the real education begins. This phase is understood to last approximately 6 months and covers an extraordinary range of disciplines. Close quarters battle, advanced marksmanship, not just accuracy, but accuracy under fatigue, in darkness, around hostages, with split-second target discrimination, explosive breaching, covert movement, surveillance tradecraft, advanced driving. You are being built into something the conventional Army does not produce. But the deepest change is not tactical. It is psychological. You are being trained to think, decide, and act in situations where the margin for error is measured in inches and milliseconds, and where the consequences of failure are not just mission loss, but human lives. By the end of OTC, you look different, not physically, though the training reshapes your body. You look different behind the eyes, quieter, more controlled. You have begun the process of becoming someone who functions at a level most soldiers will never see, and who will never be publicly acknowledged for it. Your old identity is almost gone. The operator is being born. Level 4. The Operator. Now you are in, and the first thing you learn is that in does not feel the way you expected. There is no ceremony, no badge you can show to your family, no public record of what you have become. You exist inside a unit that the government has historically neither confirmed nor denied in any official capacity. As a junior operator, typically at the staff sergeant or sergeant level, your job is to be flawlessly useful. Your shooting must be surgical. Your communications must be precise. Your judgment under pressure must be faster and cleaner than anything the conventional Army ever demanded from you. Delta operators are known publicly for wearing civilian clothing, growing beards, and operating without visible rank or insignia. That is not style, that is function. Anonymity is not a perk, it is a mission requirement. You move through environments where being identified as American military means mission failure or death. The work is real. Publicly acknowledged operations, Mogadishu, Tora Bora, the hunt for Saddam Hussein, the raid that killed Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, represent only a fraction of what the unit has reportedly done. Most of it will never be known, and you learn to be at peace with that. The recognition you trained your whole career to earn is now something you must permanently surrender. That is the price of the work. And if the price bothers you, you do not belong here. Level 5, the senior operator. Reaching this level, typically Sergeant First Class with nearly a decade of Tier 1 experience, reshapes the way you process the world. You do not startle easily. You do not panic. You read rooms, vehicles, crowds, and buildings, with a fluency that comes only from repetition under genuine threat. Your role has shifted. You are still an operator, still deploying, and still pulling triggers when the situation demands. But now, younger men are watching you before they react. Your composure sets the emotional baseline for the team. If you are calm, they are calm. If you hesitate, they notice. That is an invisible form of leadership. No rank slide communicates it. No promotion board measures it. But inside a team room, it is the difference between a unit that functions and one that fractures under pressure. You have also started to accumulate something heavier than experience, memory. You remember operations that went perfectly and ones that did not. You remember faces. You remember costs. And you carry all of it silently, because there is no one outside the unit you can explain it to. And inside the unit, everyone already knows. The world does not know your name. Your family does not fully understand your job. And the work continues. Level 6, the team leader. Team leader is where leadership stops being abstract and becomes arithmetic. You are responsible for a small team of the most dangerous men in the American military. And every call you make determines whether those men come home. At the Master Sergeant level, you have likely spent more than a decade inside the unit. You have survived selection, OTC, and years of deployments that no citation will ever describe publicly. And now, the burden shifts from personal performance to collective outcome. You plan, you are brief, your position. You decide entry points, fields of fire, contingencies, abort criteria, and extraction sequences. And then you lead from the front, because in this unit, team leaders do not command from behind a radio. They go through the door first. The responsibility is crushing in a way that outsiders cannot understand. The team leader takes responsibility when something goes wrong. And in this work, something eventually goes wrong. Not symbolically, personally. The names of the men who were hurt or lost become part of your permanent architecture. This is the rank where some men quietly break, not from fear, from accumulated weight. The ones who survive it are the ones who learned, years ago, that duty is heavier than glory, and that carrying weight is the entire point. Level 7, the Troop Sergeant Major. It is the rank where you stop being defined by what you do on target and start being defined by what you preserve off it. You are the senior enlisted leader of a troop, multiple teams, dozens of operators, and your job is to hold the standard when everything around it is trying to erode. You are the man who notices when a team is burning out before the team knows it. You notice when standards are slipping by fractions. Weapon handling, communication discipline, physical conditioning, and mental sharpness. And you correct it before it becomes visible to anyone else. In the U.S. Army, a sergeant major is described as a subject matter expert and senior enlisted advisor. Inside a unit like this, that translates into something harder. You are the living memory of every lesson the unit has paid for in blood, and your obligation is to make sure younger operators benefit from that memory without having to pay for it again. You are also a bridge, but between the operators who live in the dirt and the officers who translate strategic intent into tactical reality. You speak both languages. You protect both sides from each other's blind spots. By now, you have given the best years of your life to a unit that will never publicly acknowledge most of what you did. And you are at peace with that, because the standard is the legacy, not the name. Level 8, the Troop Commander. Now the script shifts. Not every Delta career follows the enlisted path. Officers serve inside the unit as well, and at the Troop Commander level, typically Captain or Major, you are the one who translates higher-level intent into something operators can execute without ambiguity. You brief, you plan, you coordinate with agencies and commands that operators never interact with directly. You fight bureaucratic battles so your teams can focus on operational ones. And then, when the mission launches, you carry the weight of having approved something that puts other men's lives at risk based on your judgment. Good troop commanders understand something that inferior ones never learn. The operators do not need you to be the toughest person in the room. They need you to think clearly. They need your planning to be thorough, your risk assessment to be honest, and your ego to be completely absent. In a Tier 1 unit, officer arrogance does not survive. The enlisted operators are too experienced, too perceptive, and too intolerant of incompetence to tolerate a commander who confuses rank with credibility. You earn trust the same way everyone else did, by being useful under pressure. This is where command becomes service, not in the inspirational poster sense, in the real sense. Your job exists to make other men more effective, and your success is measured entirely by their outcomes. Level 9, the Squadron. Lieutenant Colonel is publicly the rank that commands battalion-sized units in the Army, 300 to 1,000 soldiers, inside a Tier 1 Special Missions unit that translates into commanding a squadron, multiple troops, support elements, and the full operational cycle of one of the most capable formations in the American military. You no longer pass through doors. You no longer pull triggers. Your weapon is now judgment at scale. You decide tempo. You decide readiness. You decide which missions your squadrons accept and which ones you push back on, because the risk-to-gain ratio does not justify the human cost. That pushback is the hardest part of the job. And because the requests come from the highest levels of the government and military command, and saying "not yet" or "not this way" requires a kind of professional courage that is completely invisible to the public. You also carry the welfare of every operator, every family, and every support soldier under your command. You notice who is deploying too often, who is hiding damage, who needs to be pulled back before the work breaks them permanently. The unit's reputation is built on performance. Your job is to make sure that performance does not come at a cost the unit cannot sustain. At this level, command is loneliness, not the dramatic kind. The administrative, quiet, 2 a.m. kind, where you are reviewing operational risk while your family sleeps and your operators prepare to leave for places you cannot name. Level 10, the unit commander. Command of the unit is publicly understood to be a colonel's billet. At this level, you are no longer running missions. You are running the institution. You are responsible for selection standards, training pipelines, operational readiness, interagency relationships, personnel development, and the long-term health of a formation that has been quietly shaping the outcome of American national security since 1977. Colonel Charles Beckwith built this unit after seeing what the British SAS could do and recognizing that the United States needed the same capability. Every commander since has inherited that same obligation, to preserve a standard that the public will never fully see against pressures that the public will never completely understand. You consider succession. Who leads after you? And who are the troop commanders of 2035? Who are the team leaders who will carry the weight when the current generation ages out? Your decisions now shape a unit that will outlive your career by decades. And here is the final truth of this life. The higher you climbed, the less the world knew. As a young soldier, people thanked you for your service. As a team leader, your family understood pieces of what you did. As a unit commander, you can share very little about your daily reality. That is the cost. Not pain, not danger, silence. Permanent, structural, institutional silence. And when you finally leave, when the billet passes to the next colonel, there will be no parade, no headline, no documentary credit, just a handshake, a classified record, and the knowledge that you helped keep something alive that the world needed but was never supposed to see. So that is the ladder. He went from being an experienced soldier to the man who keeps the entire institution alive. And the strange thing is, the further you climbed, the less it looked like a ladder at all. It looked like a slow disappearance. Movies, headlines, and the names of operations that were declassified years after they happened all show the World Delta Force, Mogadishu, Tora Bora. The capture of Saddam Hussein was a significant event in history. The raid on al-Baghdadi. Those are the public fragments of something much larger and much quieter. But the real story was never the operations. The real story was the men who trained for years to execute them, and then never told anyone. Men who learn to shoot, think, lead, and endure at levels most people cannot imagine. And then went home and said nothing when someone asked what they did for a living. That is the cost of this life, not the danger, the silence. And if you made it to the end of this video, you understand something most people never will. That the most elite military career in the world does not end with glory. It ends with a man walking quietly out of a building no one knows the name of, carrying a record no one will ever read, proud of work no one will ever see. If this hit you, if you felt something while watching this, subscribe, because we are building more of these. Every rank, every unit, every level of the ladder, no one else is willing to explain it honestly. Hit subscribe, drop a comment telling me which unit you want next, and I will see you in the next one.